I'll introduce our first featured poet. Ashley Warner was born in New Orleans East and grew up in Gwinnett County, Georgia. She is working toward her Master's of Fine Arts at the University of Houston. Please welcome Ashley Warner.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Very honored to be here. I want to start with the poem titled Lunch Line. And some of my poems, including this one, do contain some adult material. Lunch Line. They lined us by name. I was after Nick Walker, who wore new sneakers each month. His dad managed a Foot Locker. I was before Chris Warren. Chris had a nook in the library where he sold lemon pie for $1. Let the older boys use him for practice. He taught me how to hem my skirt, how to light a colored pencil to dye my lip red. Miss Deanna made monkey bread on Fridays. She had a gold tooth, a man's name on her arm. She let us pick the food ourselves. The lunch lady who took the money knew the free lunch kids. We'd walk past her, our unfinished chests just reaching her register. She never tallied our food or creased our collars with a look. She was a wide, white wall. Canal Villery was a chain of grocery stores in New Orleans, and I believe also Missouri, but I believe the name was changed to National Grocery Store, or vice versa. Either way, I've chosen to title this poem Canal Villery because I think the name is prettier. And one night on a late store run with my father and my sister, I saw something that just stayed with me. So Canal Villery parking lot. The lights hummed their hums. The lightning bugs did their shimmy. The V in Villery stuttered. God's work must be tended to. Cats egged their bodies, thanked the vans for their Hennish heat, vans with windows for sides. Inside, boys, or a boy and a grown boy. The boy's thin body is almost 10. His whines are on their way to screams. The older boy is much older. The much older boy tries to calm the very young boy through touch. I still see all that skin, all their brown skin. My parents didn't get officially divorced until I was like 17, but since I was like 10, they were constantly separating, getting back together, separating, getting back together. And so this event happened when they were separated. Midnight. We left my dad and moved into that shotgun double cratered into Dot Street. A lady, young and on that stuff, would walk up and down the street. I don't remember her first knock. You want a bike? I got a bike for your son right here, the little one. He's a boy, right? You got 20? I'll take 10. My mom said, I don't want no bike. Stern enough to make her leave, soft enough to make sure my little brother didn't wake up. My mom, who wouldn't have an extra $10 until we returned to my dad, kept patrol. And this last piece is about a dog who lives next door to my grandmother. Last year, the University of Houston was all online, and this dog would wait until I started class to start barking. I came to cherish that dog, I still do. And his name is Bear, and this poem is for him. The gate is too short for Bear, the pit bull boxer mix next door, who, after the storm, after the washed away fence and withered gate, could not only roam our backyard for things to protect, but could go out into the front yard, the driveway, and the street placarded with sedans and resting work vans big as Bear. And he is that big. And when I tell people he is big as the downtown clinic, as a central bank, an overdue bill, and when I tell people his bark got volcanoes in it, layered the way hell is, and would be the moon's neglected stepbrother if it decided to take its true form, when I tell y'all I'm scared of that dog, I'm afraid you'll say, what dog? Ain't no dog nowhere on this block. And when I go to my window to show you he'll be gone, and I'll turn around and you'll be gone, having never been there in the first place, and I'll be alone, running to the bathroom mirror to make sure that I'm not disappearing again. And when I watch my skin switch channels, brown, black, carbon black, 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 sky black, pitch, blackety, as tar, Bear. Thank you.
Thank you. Love a good dog poem. Thank you for that. All right, our next featured poet is Grace Wagner, who is a queer, non-binary, neurodivergent poet and artist living in Denver. They recently graduated from the University of Houston with an MFA and a certificate in women, gender, and sexuality studies. They were awarded an Academy of American Poets Prize in 2020, and their work can be found in some Magundi Magazine, Hayden's Ferry Review, The Offing, The West Review, and elsewhere. Their art has appeared in the Adroit Journal and Space City Underground. Please welcome Grace Wagner.
Hello, thank you for having me. So, like you said, I just recently graduated and I moved back to Denver. So my first poem is one of the first poems I ever had published, actually, but I'm feeling it again now that I'm moving back here, back home. And the poem is called To Denver. Miles higher than the silt-soaked soil of my childhood, its death dark dirt richer than the people ever were. A land that understands floods and doesn't believe in horizons. Miles higher than the natural state of diamonds and pine trees and azaleas blooming through the brick where grits save the morning's humid grace and the unending cutting, stripping, pulping pace of the paper mill. Miles higher than the blue-black shroud of the bayou night, the attendant biting things swimming through palpable sky and sultry clouds that drip broken faucet drops twice a day, inundating the fire-green rice fields. Miles higher than the backwater brogue and biscuit communion, a faith dipped in gravy or fish fried like the world wheel spokes of okra, a world where catfish purr under the hands of the brackish river waiting to be plucked ashore. Miles higher than the life-giving river, the mother and father river, the choking river, the invasive Asian carp river, the riverboat river, the double S, double P river, the four-eyed river, the wide rolling God river. I cannot breathe you. Your skin-thin air cannot coat my lungs in southern heat, soaking the cells evergreen in the mongrel midnight, mosquitoes and mesquite smoke hanging low over the house I once called home, over the pine needle dome of the alluvial plains as the poplar trees whisper their antebellum beatitudes. What could you know of surrender, bone surrender, gray surrender, the remember the dead surrender of elementary school battlefield trips to the graves of unnamed boys killed by other unnamed boys in a war still being waged? You who are cloaked in clouds, you who see the world around you, all pinnacles and peaks and prairies, what could you know of lowland lush, vernal excess, infinite flowering, agrimony, thimbleweed, arrowleaf, aster, heartseed, marigold, and spiderwort, magnolia blossoms like fine china, blackberry, hibiscus, wisteria, wisteria, wisteria. Even the parasites are beautiful, but you, hummingbird home, vagrant home, marmot and elk and moose home. Your high-breasted peaks flash like magpie wings in the mountain dusk, thrust high above the droughted fields and skyscrapers taller than the trees. If you can call these shrinking Scheifel brush trees at all, if you can call the way the light falls sharp and brusque night, if you can call the shivering quake of the aspen anything more than uppity grass, organism, connected at the roots, I'll give you that. In a world without water, your roots are deeper than mine will ever be. Perhaps if I stand on the cliff a bit longer, feel the flat face of the mountain against my foreign feet, feel the dry and drying heat of high altitudes, feel the glacial sweep of the land sloping out to the plains and the Platte. How could I call this river? How could I call this home? But the mountains call me their own, and the bayou gives me up. So sing me your frigate song, egret song, bittern and heron and ibis song calling across snowfields and canyons, wood warblers and wrens, peregrine, ptarmigan, raven and scrubjay and shrike, starling, waxwing, lapwings and plovers, and the melancholic cry of the cormorant. I'll breathe if I can, the sunbright horizon, the jagged jutting jaw of ancient granite. How young these mountains, how young this city, crushed against the wall of the Rockies like a car crash, crashing in waves across the prairie as westward homeseekers squint against the dying sun swallowed by mountains, foot after foothill, trudging up and over and out again, but never truly leaving the peaks that push them, the peaks that Zebulon Pike could not ignore. Avalanche land, siren land, coax me into your crevices, blue ice light beckoning, beguiling peaks named for higher learning. High-leaning schist and gneiss, quartz and quartzite, aquamarine 13,000 feet above the sea, tourmaline, turquoise, topaz, zircon and agate, garnet and jasper, alabaster in the foothills of Fort Collins. I do not yet know you enough to name you more than the place where the columbines grow, the Centennial State, a new birthed place, a manifest destiny place where there is nothing without providence. Still, there are pines, pinyon, and ponderosa, though they do not have the face of those old trees, do not have the childlike terror height of my mind's eye, but still they are here, evergreen enough to let me sleep. Breathe me, you who sit continentally divided, who cannot decide on anything but the West and the wind and the wandering souls you swallow whole. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you. All right. Our next featured poet is D.E. Zucconi, who has a current volume of poetry, Vanished. Let me just say that again. His current volume of poetry, Vanishes, just came out this year. His poems appeared in Borderlands, Waterstone, International Review of Poetry, Southern Indiana Review, many other publications. His poetry has been in anthologies from Round Top, Taos Artist, Words and Art, Mutabilis Press, Big Poetry Review. Zucconi presented a show of altered Polaroid photos called Not Real Life, or Not in Real Life. He also curated an online poetry discussion called Ex Libris for Public Poetry. He has been a featured reader in Houston, Brooklyn, Taos, Los Angeles, and is a frequent reader at the Archway Gallery and Words and Art at Rice University and the Menil Museum. Please welcome D.E. Zucconi.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Fran, and Public Poetry for continuing on and on with this wonderful event. Thanks to the Houston Public Library for being the relentless gift it is to the city of Houston, and a wonderful treasure. I want to start with some poems from Vanishes. I'm holding up for you. Some of them are, this one is about a card trick. If you've tried to learn any card tricks, you know they're really not much trick and a whole lot of tedious practice, but we go forward. It's called the sixes and nines, which is a trick. The first trick, like telling a bedtime story, relies on your face being able to invent details of what doesn't exist as happiness. Pleasure's such a surprise, we kiss it goodbye before it arrives. Cotton candy, satin sheets, menus, chocolate truffles, our favorite confusions diffuse our desires. I'm going to show you two cards. They don't matter. Imagine you don't know what to bring back from your cave of disappeared. The soldier or the tinderbox, a lost cat, a shame you hide beneath jewelry, or the memories that constantly saunter off as you sleep. You've lost so many. So much disappears. I see you're distracted. Here, look, aren't these your sixes and nines leaping into my hand? Does it matter how I manage this? What's in your left hand? An itch? The next is clowns in the car. One needn't introduce anything about clowns. Everybody has their own feelings. Clowns in the car, the place they're not supposed to exist, but they've practiced disappearing in odd angles of rearview mirrors, disappearing one white-faced clown as another returns, twisting balloons into dogs. It's only squeaky distraction. Don't believe that clowns wear makeup the same as we wear clothes. Widows' weeds, overalls, dancing shoes display spirits in our bodies. Mother's fur, Mr. Bolosky's baby blue tuxedo at the wedding reception, fun masquerades. Clowns rub away their faces, strut around disguised as Pierrot, Auguste, or a tramp. But even that won't be enough disappearance. Drums, clarinets, and glockenspiels imply a world even twisted for enchanted worlds. Laughter. Children scream or pee their pants or both. Painted eyes, kicks, slapsticks, yanking out each other's chairs, swollen hands in white gloves, swinging pails that always spill. Their silence is a complicit finger to the lips. Another gag. You know the routine. You've woken up in the circus again. There's a balking donkey being yanked and shoved. Clowns offer gifts, squirting flowers, a bucket of confetti, exploding dogs. And then finally, I want to read The Dog and Pony Show. In the tented world, everyone wants our pony and dog as an empath, a noble companion in a slave relationship, to carry us through the snowstorm or howl on our grave or refuse to eat when we're gone. Even God enjoys obedience tricks, silken head covers, colored veils, mutilations, kidnapped children. There's a clown in the center of the world and a constructed scarlet circle with that sweet dappled pony trotting faster and faster, seeing nothing, trusting commands, harsh words and attentive murmurs. A clown snaps his buggy whip. The pony runs dangerously faster. Equine eyes roll wild and searching, horse breath tearing air deeper, Then deeper, it lowers its head to gallop the sound of blind apocalypse. A little white dog begins to somersault at its floppy feet of the clown. It yips and begs for attention. Little dogs must. It pursues the pony, nipping hooves, dog paws, imperceptible, the pony rhythmically pounding. Open! The white dog flies, landing on the pony's rump. The breath of our world ceases, then inhales. Sprung! The dog flips and flips. It's unbearable. Schnell! Schnell! The pony snorts and races. Desperate spatters begin as the crowd conjoins in the hope that a cataract of hand claps will make it stop. Still, the pony and dog continue. Circles, flips, circles, flips. There's nothing else in the world but these creatures. Prayers, terrible orbits that won't cease, and a whip. Thank you.
Thank you. I could see and feel that poem. Love it. Our next featured poet is Joshua Nguyen, and he is a bisexual Vietnamese American writer, a collegiate national poetry slam champion, and a native Houstonian. He is the author of the chapbook American Look Back for My Mother, which came out this year, and has received fellowships from Kundiman, Tin House, Sundress Academy for the Arts, and the Vermont Studio Center. He has been published in The Offing, Wildness, American Poetry Review, the Texas Review, Auburn Avenue, and Gulf Coast Magazine, among others. He has also been featured on the Versus podcast and the Slowdown podcast. His debut poetry collection, Come Clean, is about to come out. Yes, early October. Watch for that. He's a bubble tea connoisseur and currently a PhD student at the University of Mississippi. Please welcome Joshua Nguyen.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's cool. My first ever, I think, writing workshop or writing experience was when I was 13 with Justin Bieber Bangs at the downtown Houston Library. So it's cool to be with this event. And in spirit of that 13-year-old self, I'll be reading some strange poems from my debut collection, Come Clean. Strange in the sense that like visually how they're like disparate across the page makes it interesting. I always wonder how I would read these poems. I think this is a good space to do it in honor of like how the downtown Houston Library really like opened up my writing career for me. So this first poem is called Save Me, Marie Kondo. It opens with an epigraph. When you put your house in order, you put your affairs and your past in order too. I open my jaw to a framed photo of a grandmother I know from my first memory. Hospital bed, half-used Tiger Balm, EKG machine, rosary. From my first memory, it picks, and scoops little droplets of honey with a toothpick made from splinters in the door. Her shoulder smells of incense, lavender, love. Everyone around me, cousins, uncles, third cousins, friends of cousins, are crying. My father cries a sound I will never hear again. His mouth lockjawed over the beige mound at the foot of the bed. 10 lifeless toes crease beneath the hospital blanket. Or I open my jaw to a grandmother from my first memory. It splinters like ice in Texas. Her shower smells of incense in Wisconsin and never crying again. Everyone around me, cousins, uncles, and the one who grabbed me cries. I'm crying, but a father will never come near again. My childhood room locked, reading bedtime stories that shovel the attic within the attic, open. This box for the herbs, this box for the knives, this box for all her aoyais, this box for her yom, This box for her pearls, this box for her globes, this box for her purple robes, this box for the cognac, this box for the Hail Marys, this box for the rice paper, this box for the orange star, this box for the tar. Or, memory is a grandmother's jaw, it splinters. The second poem is called March 4th. It came because I love puns. I don't know if that's a hot take here, but I love how my birthday, March 4th, is also a pun of March 4th to come forward. So March 4th. Tell the priest to wait outside the hospital room. I'm wiping the blood off his handsome head. My son must be presentable to the world. My son, the world will try to bury you. You're worth more than the earth's demise. Your name will be Jom, meaning loyalty, or made bed every morning. I hid a bottle of fish sauce under the hospital bed for this day. I sent your father home to tidy up the house. Do not ever forget that I am your mother. I will give you a clean life. I will stitch you a towel out of lullabies. I will clear you from this placenta rouge. I will hold you in one hand and a napkin in the other. You will collect the dust from the attic, catch it on your tongue. You will be porcelain, jade, and the slipping of dishes into the sink. You will be hair slicked back, skin clear, and mouth compressed. But right now, this moment, you're a gunk. You are imperfect. Right now, I have your blood and my blood cradled. A sacred intimacy, seeing you at your worst. Oh, shout out, Carmen's birthday is also March 4th. So shout out to us Pisces. This last poem of my first set is called First Memory. My first memory was 4-year-old me drooling over my mother's bare shoulder. She makes sure to keep swaying because she needs me to stay quiet, to not interrupt the drowning at the foot of the hospital bed, where my father lay sprawled, his legs floating on the linoleum, his hands tucking in his mother's left foot, holding onto her last exhale. The doctor says something where his mouth contorts into a garrote. My father lets out a cry, a hook that tears itself into my earlobe, the kind of childlike wail that disrupts the homily until the echo is carried away outside. And you know they feel awful, and it's not their fault. And after you drag your finger through the water and see them red and exasperated outside, you say nothing to them. And what is the worth of pride when your boat burns into the ocean, when you are the fire and the ship sinking and the salt digging into eyes, skin of your hands torn from holding the anchor dragged by the riptide? What then can a circling family in the hospital do when the captain is damning the god his mother reminded him to pray to every night because she said, how do you know when it will be your time? Even though a week prior, my parents were asking around for white headbands, incense, and life vests to prepare for the funeral. Thanks. Thank you.
First up, Ashley Warner.
Thank you to everyone who shared their work. I really enjoyed that. And thank you for all of the kind words in the chat. Shout out to Jody, Aaron, Eric, and Brittany. I have been obsessed with August Wilson's play Fences and the character Alberta, who doesn't have any lines, and we never see her. She is the woman who has an affair with Troy and gives birth to his child, Raynell, and she dies in childbirth. So I've been pretending to be Alberta because I adore her. So, narrative. I am Alberta, first of my name, holder of crossvines, sister of teachers, lover of Troy, giver of Raynell, you're welcome. Bringer of thresholds, I chose Pittsburgh. On the map, it looks like an engine. When you close your mouth to say it, you stop breathing long enough to know the body needs air. The women come to me when they get an infected hangnail. I thicken the thinning spots of the scalp. The women come to me when the baby need not be there, when the skin of the lip crinkles like gooseberry husks, when they feel their men slipping like the loose reds of Spanish peanuts. We don't know much about Alberta. We only know that she's from Florida, but female friendship is very important to Black women, especially in Black women's writing. And I would like to be a part of that tradition. So I imagine that Alberta has a best friend who goes by the name Tallahassee. Act 3, Scene 1. It is 1957. Alberta and Tallahassee enter their home, engaged in conversation. Both women are leaving their 20s. Both have redwoods for thighs. They are close. Imagine the foam atop a wave. Imagine the light bulb safe in its corona. They are Black obsidian, volcano blood choosing stillness. This is Alberta's story, but it should be said with respect to self-reliance, of course. Ain't no Alberta without Tallahassee. This is Alberta's story. Respect should be paid to her father, Albert. The men in his family helped build Florida Agricultural and Mechanical College for Negroes. Albert told the boys on his street to call him 1887, made his women read Exodus, counted their pauses. Alberta's mother, Lady Brown, had none. On occasion, Alberta would rope the lazy arm of Spanish moss into a blindfold, called this her root eye. At the beginning of my first year at the University of Houston, we were tasked with sending in a haiku. I wrote the haiku, but I never sent it in. It wasn't required, it was optional. But it is about Raynell and her mother, Alberta, of course. Birth story. A mausoleum of a mother, brinish air, baby plots escape. This last piece is the first piece that I wrote with Alberta in mind. And it mentions Alberta, Troy, of course, the main character from Fences, his lovely wife, Rose. Wicked. I'm simple. That's what he said. No serious talk about mannish unions, TVs bought on credit, what to do when the rest of Gabe slips into the great big gray. I'm long gone and they still call me that big gal from Florida. Rose? Rose. I know she's better. She thinks of me when she winds the plastic barrette around the ends of Raynell's hair, stuck in a lifelong chore, unable to cocoon herself, unable to return. You learn so much when you die. Rose in that Bible so much, studying the dead, preparing, memorizing arbitrary passages. Arbitrary. I taught Troy that word. The laugh I'll laugh when she sees me, when she sees us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's a very cool series. So, all right, let's welcome back Grace Wagner.
So this first poem is in response to the American Shore Ode, where a poet stands at the shore and contemplates the liminality of existence. But my professor, Martha Serpis, kind of casually dropped that no one writes shore odes about Hawaii or Alaska. And I was like, challenge accepted, because I had a very formative experience in Hawaii. So here we go. Erosion at Punalu'u Beach. Black sand, volcanic land of broken glass, fissure of earth erupting from the white surfaced sea, made bright by that collision of liquid rock and liquid rock. Here, fragments remain fragments, obsidian, even at noon. I was, I think, still a child, shaped like a woman I would never grow into. Shedding my dress, shoeless, I walked onto the black sand. I learned then that pain can make you crave the water. I felt the shards cut me, my feet city soft and nearly bleeding. I walked into the surf and prayed the land would change. I couldn't see then the sand soften and slip away from the shore. Couldn't see my edges worn smooth, what wearing away of that newly womaned body. All prayers for change are answered. It can take a decade to lose the shore to the sea. It took me 3 to wear away the fragments broken before my birth. A double X marked me on my shore, predetermined me. Sharp edges shredding my feet even then, even there on that black beach, as I stood dreading the trek back up the shore, the empty dress that awaited me. And this next poem is after William Carlos Williams, and it's called Leaving the Psychiatric Hospital. Color-blocked clouds throw blue shadows across the foothills. Rain-starved shrubs gather in folds of gray-green, pleading at the hem of the mountain's unmoving skirts. Old paths of snow melt, cobbled beds visible through aspens flaring, lurid yellow, a contagious shade. A scattering of hunched pinyon and ponderosa shiver. Winter spreads out from the northwest and nothing is the same. Hide now, curl away sun-stark, and wait until the creek runs clear and cold and the dead sprout out of the troubled earth. And then this last poem is some new shit. Sorry for the curse word. I should have said something. But yeah, and something I've written since I graduated. On the question of sentience, a memory. As a child, I rode the Galapagos tortoise at the Oklahoma City Zoo, her body heavy with 100 years to my 5. Her shell was rigid with keratin and cupped upside down to protect her aged insides. She knew I was no threat and ambled along her path, oblivious to my goings on. What had her 100 years shown her? I did not yet know what it meant to be alive, but was I sentient? At what point does knowledge of the world turn into knowledge of oneself? I knew I would fall if I let Earth's gravity take me. I knew the Earth housed bones, that dinosaurs were extinct, and that fire burns. I knew the burn of a scraped knee and a turn towards the sun would make me sneeze. I knew I wanted something, but I didn't yet know what. Do I, even today, know what pulls me along my well-trod path of pacing my enclosure after years of that beautiful, dangerous island of my youth? I have learned today that sentient means capable of feeling, and was I not therefore sentient? I felt my mother lift me in her arms, and I cried at the feeling of leaving behind a living wound, a warmth of bodied feeling, feeling only the chill air and the longing. Am I sentient now? Can I even feel my body these days? When I was a child, I felt hungry, tired, the urge to pee. Now I feel only the hunger of my next publication, tired of forced productivity, and the urge to see where my path leads. I will most likely never live to be 105, though I may find myself host to yet another sentient being longing for life outside the womb, only to find wounds, only to find feeling as raw as reality and twice as real, cognizant of the distance, the difference between self and other, child and shell, feeling and living. Oh, little ancient sentient creature, ride me, my back, a bridge to the next gasping breath, my hands grasping the earth beneath us all. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. All right. Let's welcome back our next featured poet, D.E. Zucconi.
You, I wanted to be more of an ekphrastic poet. And I just kept finding myself attracted to lower forms of art. Having said that, that will introduce the next two poems I'm going to read. I do need to give you a warning that these are poems that will include violence against women, racial violence, neither of which I am promoting, but I am examining. Sawing a woman in half. Pharaoh commands a miracle. Moses conjures a stick into a snake. The Nile is blood. Locusts appear, disappear. A burning bush speaks. Sons die. Slaves demand bondage. Audiences demand catastrophe. Noah fills his ark to a screaming crowd. Blind Samson does a chain break to a packed house. David rolls Goliath's head between armies. What we desire to see is so rarely what we want to admit. In 1920, Percy Selbit franchised an illusion using a crosscut saw to leisurely slice a woman in half, then restore her body to bedraggled integrity. Vaudeville audiences, stunned by screams of alarm and panicky shrieks, saw no story but applauded suffering. The magician's ingenue, no longer his accomplice, became his victim. It's an obvious trick, but the intimate drama of torture was a sensation that sells. London newspaper editorials demand theaters ban the act. Selbit dares Emmeline Pankhurst appear and allow herself to be sawn in two. A wall of posters displays women squashed, spiked, hammered, dragged through the eye of the needle. Houdini is inverted in the window of a Chinese torture chamber. Pearl White flickers helpless on screens, tied to the trestle as a train approaches, as the buzzsaw comes closer, as she's thrown off the cliff, as another fuse is lit. The knights of the Ku Klux Klan ride to the rescue, and the theater cheers. In Duluth, postcards of circus workers hanged on light poles become family correspondence. There's a constant demand for terrible miracles. Seeing has only been believing. And this last poem is based on a small picture of a frozen canary. It's an oil painting. Frozen canary, Flemish oil, 40 by 50 centimeters, possibly purged 16th century. The title should be enough, even too much, frozen canary. But continue. What circumstances? Tragic, Orphic, a songster, or just the cliche prison? Cheap, cheap, cheapity, cheap, cheap. Details are the gossip of art. A gilded frame, eroding colors, the minuscule circumference, that detailed aviary, manicle measures like the Papangeo stammer, parts presume a grandiose whole. But who seems sure of mimesis since the storm set? Imitating a past winter of enveloping dark requires different skill than pulling brocaded drapes across dining room windows. Even if you have a dining room, as we did in Glen Haven when I was a boy, our family rented a duplex with a solarium, traditional rooms we seldom employed, like our front doors. My parents may have been waiting for their angels to trudge in up the back stairs. God's cages, multitudes made of wings to sing whatever God wants to hear. I can't believe angels could have been any more grateful than the imaginary canary. Freedom, so frequently pennies tossed up from hell. My canary sang only to the vacuum cleaner. I say my canary, the yellow bird dad named Pete, his gift of responsibility to me as a boy. But now, me means you, the viewer, assumed into this miniature of an ice-glazed corpse of a songbird, beak sealed, blue-tinged tail feathers, a nearly invisible wire chain. You might still imagine even that extremity, a worn obstacle to disbelief, a trope, or a Ravenstein imitation. No one knows. Maybe it's a forgery cleverly overpainted with linseed oil, or a genuine Quattrocento on a Linwood panel, purchased just as the Little Ice Age ended. It was briefly a prosperous Netherlander's vanitas, a religious style of household abundance on display. Laid cherry tables piled with overripe fruits, fusty Gouda and truckles, fresh killed game, sliced Parma ham, rotting roses. Covetousness invested with understatement. And haven't we briefly admired those other Dutch snow scenes? Knots of shivering peasants trading news huddled around winter fires, circumstances, market rumors, worried looks. We could be mistaken to imagine this canary isn't a parable, an allegorical corpse, a painted fable of the soul in rigor mortis. Doom as the mid-leg of a triangle, perhaps on the unity, traded alive for a clay pipe or a glass of beer, no allusions to penance, only divine selection, colder silence portending from the gilded hand carved framing, a religious aesthetic of terror, undeniable as swallowing live fire, but denied. One family fortune in a dining room, hanging inheritance lost. 3 centuries later, by chance identified wandering in the haunted circle of rummage auctions, backside inscribed, Pond, pond, April 7th, 1645. In a silent bird, 311 bills of lading, double entered. 319 screams frozen to the timbers each trip. Enterprising, nothing more or less. Prayers to the unimaginable will of God, storming across a sea of sugar and smoke. Just as a footnote, the Unity was a sailing ship used by the Dutch West India Company exclusively for slave trade. It made 311 crossings, carrying about approximately 900,000 people to slavery.
Thank you. All right. Let's welcome back our fourth featured poet, Josh Wynn.
Hey, I have two more poems. This first one's a little longer, it's heavier. A trigger warning for a mention of sexual assault towards the speaker. And then I'll end with a shorter, sweeter, hopefully funny poem that ends with love. So this first poem is called I Don't Trust the Dishwasher, which I don't know if this is like an immigrant child thing or an Asian thing, but we don't like work with dishwashers for their purpose. And you'll notice in the poem, I reference page numbers. The poem is kind of meta. It references other poems within the collection. Yeah, I don't trust the dishwasher. I don't trust the dishwasher like how I don't trust light in the morning. I don't trust the dishwasher like how I don't trust movie butter. I don't trust the dishwasher like how I don't trust positive reinforcement. I don't trust a process that traps. I don't trust my delegates in the hands of what has no hands. I don't trust darkness that is too wet. I don't trust the last cycle that ran through, that tore the white of the walls till what was left was gape. I don't trust mouthwash to do the job that floss does. No matter how much the mouth gargles, the mouth shakes, the mouth quakes, door open wide, suds spill. Plates cover back to still, trauma in the shape of steam. A spa of floating wrists, reaching out toward my neck, my back, my forehead, and the gum between my teeth. Gurgled soap in my throat, dirty words illuminated under gaslight. Foam bursting out of orifices, organic lavender down my eardrums, hearing threats disguised as pillow talk. I should be able to stop the dishwasher halfway. I shouldn't have to wait for it to be finished. Don't scrub a nonstick pan past the point of purity. I was baptized in a bath, swallowed enough sacred oil for the parish, my own unconsented renewal, a car wash of my body during another Texas or New York or Mississippi flooding. My mother swaddled me clean enough, see page 3. So all I received from baptism was a sacrament of dry skin. Let me be born again in the sink, the dish soap up to my breasts, my cousin's black teeth smiling behind the disposable camera, a pillar of bubbles atop my head, a gag collar around my cheeks, a green sponge in place of a red ball. The sink chromed in a basement in Wisconsin, see page 6. Washington, see page 40. What matters is that there are no basements in Texas, see page 12. What matters is that I was 7 or 8 or 9 or 11. I was undersized, I was cleaned out. What matters is I was 13 in a bunk bed, see page 15 in San Diego. I was not supervised. I fell in love with the painter. We kissed on a window until their coach interrupted. The window of Windex, the streaks, a smile across my face. What matters is that another person from another team blacked out the windows. What matters is that I was 13 and they were 20. My clothes burning by the fire exit. My skin broken glass by the fire extinguisher. The bunk bed, a power dynamic between fire and hand sanitizer. Afterwards, I lay, sprawled, a rag drenched in alcohol below a broken bulb. I lay face down, my cheek squeezed in the cavity of a massage table, my eyes becoming coins with each pressure point. 50%, off with the head. What matters is that I was just out of middle school. What matters is I had an uncle. What matters is I had a cousin, much younger than me, with me, in another room, with the same confused expression. I understand now what begets the climax of muscles and the rush of blood. Hunger. The sacrifice of a Vietnamese boy to feed another Vietnamese boy. What matters is that I flunked Vietnamese school twice. What can I say? What matters is that we walked out as terrified boys, but our uncles called us men. Oh, born again christening, Joshua, loyal soldier of Moses, see Red Sea. I still can't get their garlic breath out of me. Again, I was young. They were old enough to know better. There was snow in Houston once, see page 35. There was my best friend in the bathroom. There was her older cousin holding down my wrists. There was me, a target, see page 25, an Asian flush bullseye, a dive bar pool table with the commercial dishwasher in the kitchen, the shuddering of its silver body against a rack of beer mugs. What matters is that I can't stand the original purpose of the dishwasher, its humidity, its carnage, the irresponsible lack of awareness of its jets, the way it bends my favorite spoons. I leave the lid cracked open to air out the debris, to allow the past to dry on its own time, the methodical process of wash, rinse, and place. I cradle every dirty dish in the sink. I trust my responsibility with myself. I trust these hands of warm water. Thank y'all for having me. Yeah, shout out to Floss. If you want to pre-order my book, there's a link in the chat to IndieBound if you want to get it from your local independent bookstore or request at the downtown library. Shout out to Public Poetry, to the downtown Houston library. Shout out to Fran, always a friend. I feel like I should get red frames for my next pair of glasses because they look pretty cool in Fran. This last poem came from a thought I have when I go to like hotels. I always question why the hand towel placement is above the toilet. That seems like an odd choice for the hand towel. It just irks me. So I wrote this poem. Thank you for having me. Self-portrait as the hand towel which hangs above the toilet. Yes, the easy joke is that I am hanging out. Like I have nothing better to do than dry, like your hands after you're done with me. Like no one asked me if it's okay to use me. No, I do not open my mouth wide when the toilet gets flushed. Why do you think the horrible of me? None the wiser when I explain I rest out of the flush zone. No, it was not my choice to do this type of towel work, to do this thankless duty, to do what no one else will do. Yes, I gaze at the most vulnerable, the backs of long strained necks, the backs of skulls that haven't been held, the backs of ears that never listened to my advice. No, there is more work to be done beyond washing your hands. No one asked me to watch out for germs, but I soak them all up. Wash the dirt from beneath nails that don't wave back. Yes, I am lonely. I am sad and feel unloved. I am sick of the smells. I am wanting a life in the kitchen. No, not the ones on reality TV, but the silver of fluorescence across my view. The temptation of the oven's handle, sleek, the wild nights of spaghetti and marinara messy. Yes, I want the conflict of the kitchen, but the kind with the re-gifted oven mitt, butter still on the edge of the thumb, bud of a cauliflower in its palm, simple and wishing me love. Thank you.